Good morning, everyone. It's Penelope. And we're going to talk about prepping today, but we're not going to talk about prepping for um, catastrophes other than something that comes every year, and that's winter. Winter is something that comes every year, and I don't know how people are caught off guard. I haven't figured that out yet because winter comes every year. And every year we should have a little stockpile to make sure that we can get through some winter times that might be pretty treacherous. So if you're snowed in or iced in, you have the things that you need for however long it takes to get the roads back in gear or to get your car cleaned off, whatever it takes. So I always recommend 2 weeks worth of stuff. Now, even if you only use it for 3 or 4 days, you still have a little extra just in case another event happens. Because in winter, there's always more than one snowstorm or more than one ice storm or something that can really happen that you can't get out. I hate that because where I live, if it's bad outside, I can't get anywhere. So I always make sure that we have enough stuff stocked up. Two things that I always recommend if you have freezer space. Number one is bread. Bread freezes really, really well. Make sure you have an assortment of sliced bread, hamburger buns, hot dog buns, whatever breads you use, throw them in the freezer. If you come across the discount and there's coffee cakes and a few things like that that you can get really, really cheap, wrap them up in foil, throw them in the freezer. But milk and bread, those are the two things that people go for the most when it's really starting to get nasty outside. And so when you go in and you know there's a storm coming, you can better believe that the milk and the bread is going to be wiped out. So always have that. Start now. Throw a gallon of milk in your freezer, maybe half gallons, whatever you think you would need. A loaf of bread, like I said. Those are things that are gone. Eggs. Eggs are always gone. And eggs, you could scramble them up and fry and freeze them. I know some people will freeze opened eggs. They will hatch or crack them out into like a Ziploc bag, roll them up, and put them in the refrigerator or the freezer and freeze eggs. However you prefer. Eggs last quite a while. So as winter hits, I would always grab an extra dozen of eggs just to make sure you had those. So those are the three things: milk, eggs, and bread are the first things that go when a storm is coming up. You go into the store and it's like, there is no milk, there is no bread, and there are no eggs left. So start preparing by thinking about getting your milk and your bread and your eggs. However you want to store your eggs, that's up to you. I just like to buy an extra dozen when I go grocery shopping when it starts getting to be that time of year when we can start getting bad weather. So I'll buy an extra dozen of eggs. Not that big of a deal. With the deep freeze, I am going to start putting things in there such as loaves of bread, a gallon of milk, and I'll probably keep a gallon of milk in my freezer at all times and keep extra bread just because. But I will look for discount bread so that way it really didn't take much out of my weekly budget. I'll look for the discounted danishes or rolls or something like that to throw in the freezer because you got to have something sweet, right? Comfort food. Okay, so milk, bread, and eggs. Those are the three things that people go and clear out the shelves with. Let's have the first one here. So my recommendation as a prepper, and you probably can't see this real well, and that's okay because I'm just going to go through it anyway. Up to 2 weeks of food, and make sure it's a variety and things that you eat. Pet needs. That's something that I think a lot of people forget about. You have a dog, have an extra bag of dog food. You have cats, have a couple extra bags of cat food. Make sure you have enough litter, and their snacks. If they have snacks and they're used to getting snacks, have a few of those on hand. And then your comfort snacks. Things that maybe you eat once a week and you don't really keep it on hand. Go ahead and grab them and put them aside. Now to put aside extras, this is what I recommend. Go look in a closet. Do you have a little bit of space that you could put a couple totes or a couple 5-gallon buckets under your bed, maybe? And an old dresser. An old dresser is a fantastic facilitator for extras. You can open those drawers and like there's your extra canned goods or your extra instant packs, and you can get those plastic shoebox containers for $1. So if you are like me and you have issues with mice as winter hits, you know, all your packets and anything that can be chewed in, you put them in those shoe boxes and just shove those in those drawers, and they fit perfectly fine. So an old dresser would be a great facilitator for just a little prepper extra. Okay, and if you just do a little bit right now, starting out, a little bit each week, and if you go back and look at my $5 a week for 8 weeks, there's quite a bit of food there. Now, I did not include pet food in that, but if you go back and kind of reference that, kind of gives you an idea of things that you could get. But, you know, just use $5 a week starting out now. We're in mid-October. We've got time, but I think it's going to come on pretty strong in the beginning of December. That's just my guess. So that would give you about 6, 7, 8 weeks, and then you want to really heavy prepare. So what I recommend getting, and you know, not all the time will the electric go out when we have snow and ice storms. Sometimes your power stays on, but you just can't get anywhere. You know, maybe they've called an emergency and you're not allowed to get anywhere. And so you don't want to break the law. But things that you can put in your prepper pantry or organizational tote or anything like that is pancake mix, maybe some bread mix, instant potatoes, instant milk, shelf-stable milk. I keep shelf-stable milk and instant milk, but that is for my longer term prepping. But it's not bad to have it on hand, even if you're not really a prepper, but you want to be prepared for a winter disaster or event. I shouldn't say disaster. It's really just an event. Oatmeal. Oatmeal is something you should have on hand. And I would recommend going ahead and getting the instant packs of the flavors that you like, because number one, they're going to be comforting, they're going to be sweet, they're going to be already flavored and really easy to go with. Always keep your dry rice, pasta, or beans. And, you know, I have some of the Barilla pouches. I have some of the Uncle Ben pouches. And all you got to do is throw them in the microwave. They come in handy. And I have them on hand because of sales. But I always also keep lots of dried rice. Instant rice, my pastas, and my beans, dried beans. Now, when you want to start this pantry just for an emergency, and I'm not saying, you know, become this grand prepper, look for canned and jars food too. Soups, appealing soups that are appealing to you. I always recommend the chunky style soups. I don't say Campbell's per se, but when Campbell's soups comes on sale for 99 cents or the Progresso soup comes on 99 cents, I do buy it. And I do stock up hard on it because I think that the chunky style soups are awesome. But if you go with the no-name brands, you're going to spend $1.37, $1.25 a piece for them. But when Campbell's goes on sale at Kroger or Kroger affiliates for 99 cents, that's a good deal. So then you can actually get the Campbell's for 99 cents. And I stock up, and that's something I do recommend. Denny Moore stews or any kind of beef stew that you can find cheap. It's got a meat, a vegetable, and a gravy. It's great over pasta. It's great over rice. Complete meals. Even your little Hormel or Denny Moore little convenient meals. Those aren't a bad deal. I think Ragu and Campbell's makes the pouched meals. Those aren't bad either. You want to make sure that you have broths on hand and canned meats. I know, you know, some people are like, oh my God, the luncheon loaf spam. Hey, it comes in handy sometimes. Also, tunas, chickens, they have all kinds of canned meats. I'd recommend having some canned meat on hand. And then, of course, canned milk. They have the milk that you can add water to. It's concentrated. I can't think. I was trying to think of the name, the brand name. I know it has Dot in it, and that's all I know. Couldn't I couldn't figure out what it was. But the condensed milk, not the sugary kind, but the evaporated milk, is still really good too, to have on hand, especially if you want to cook. You know, you don't want to use the milk that you have saved for the milk needs, so you have some of that on hand to make things creamier or whatever. I always recommend having canned fruits and vegetables on hand, and sauces, pasta sauces, such as even macaroni cheesy sauce, Alfredo sauce, pasta sauce, as in marinara, or your favorite spaghetti sauce. I always recommend having that. Something else that I recommend with the food is frozen pizzas. Throw them in there, because if you're used to having a pizza night where you have someone goes and picks up a pizza, but you're stuck home, have some frozen pizzas in the freezer, in your freezer, or have some things that you can make, as kits. I always have pizza cheese in my freezer, always. Um, but I have boxes of pizza mix, and then shelf stable pepperoni. So, you always have that option to make one at home. And most oftentimes when we do have the snow and ice events, we don't lose electric, or we don't lose power, or if we do, it's only for a very short while. Um, things are a little better than they used to be. Now, we did here lose it for over a week, years and years ago, when we had a hurricane. And here we are in Indiana, and we lost power, and a lot of people lost power for over 3 weeks. So, you know, when that happens, just remember to have coolers available. Maybe buy some of those styrofoam coolers. So that way, if you do lose power, you can put your food in those coolers and put them outside, and you won't lose your food as quickly. And of course, when the power comes on, your food is still cold. Put it back into what you have, the freezers, the refrigerator. Just remember, you want to use that food first before you start getting into your canned food if you do lose power. So, food is a very important thing, and pet supplies is very important. Obviously, you know, water is the first thing that preppers will tell you to get. And I also recommend having water. But, if the electric goes out, shelf stable food, you should have a variety of it, and your water, and your pet needs, and a can opener. Because your electric can opener is not going to work if you lose your power. Sorry. You're going to have to twist it. And this reminds me of this story. I was buying a crock pot from one of my coworkers, lovely gal. She got married. She had plenty of crock pots. And I had just bought a 4 quart, and I really wanted an 8 quart. And she had one. And I was like, oh, I want to buy it. She's like, but it's manual. I'm going, what the manual? Well, that means you have to turn a dial. I just still find that hilarious. And this looks like it says cooters on here, but it's not. It's coolers. Make sure you have some coolers on hand so that way you can set your stuff outside. I always recommend having Sterno cans. They are the little, like a Bunsen burner deal. It has like the gel and a wick, and you can heat up stuff if you need to. Always make sure you have an outside cook area that you can really put up, like really close to your house. I would recommend that, with like a grill, and maybe have some plastic where you can actually, or not plastic, but make sure that you can make a windbreak on it so that way you can go outside and cook you some meat or whatever. And your heat source. If you have a kerosene heater, or a propane heater, which I don't think they really recommend for inside the house, but I would recommend getting a kerosene heater and just having that on hand with some extra kerosene, especially if you have young ones, little ones. Bigger kids and stuff can actually do a little better without it, but if you have babies and little ones, make sure that you have some heat source available. Obviously, if you have a fireplace, you're rocking. Make sure you have that wood, your kindling, your material starter. If you have an old an old wood stove, awesome. But if you have little ones and you don't have those options, I would recommend getting a kerosene heater or something like that. I don't recommend the propane heaters because they can be really, really dangerous. I mean, all of it can. All of it can be dangerous. But, when it comes to your little ones freezing or getting sick, you have to do things that you don't really normally do. I would always recommend having candles and matches or lighters on hand, flashlights, the electric or the battery operated dome lights. Even get some of those solar outside lights, even the kind that you can put along your walkway that are solar. You can let them sit out all day and bring them in, and you've got light all around the house. They'd be kind of like a torch. And make sure you have plenty of batteries. So, that's if the electric goes out. I mean, first and foremost, you just want to make sure that you have 2 weeks worth of supplies. That I have more than 2 weeks, but I would recommend 2 weeks. Even if you only use them, like I said, for 3 or 4 days, you have still some left for, the next type. Something else too that you need to think about are your kids. You're not going to be watching TV if there's no power. They're not going to be playing their games. So the one thing that you might want to do is figure out some board games, card games, things like that. Fill a little closet and just have some things, some drawing, coloring things that you've set aside that's new. Some little toys that are very hand busy, especially for the little ones, because they're going to get bored really quickly because they're so used to having, the electronics in their life. So I would really recommend having like some Legos set aside. They don't need to know about them, just something that you can pull out and it's new, a new coloring book, new crayons, something like that, something that's new. Just have like a little junk box. Maybe you just start throwing little things in. And if one of those situations happens, you can always pull that out and go, okay, look what I got. And that would get the whole family involved. Everybody would get in there and start digging around and seeing what's going on. Have conversation cards. I think that would be an awesome thing to do, especially if you have kids. I mean, kids are very, right now it's all about computers and video games or electronics. We'll just say that. And I think, some interaction. Decide of maybe some topics and just have those cards set aside for topics and make sure you have some topics that that they're interested in. Heat sources, like I said, kerosene heaters, wood stove, and if you get a kerosene heater, make sure that you have all of the necessary things to make it as safe as possible with extra fuel. Store that extra fuel wherever you need to store it. I'm really weird about heaters like that. And then your wood stove, make sure you have your starter material, your kindling wood, and then your appropriate sized logs or wood pieces, and try to get the longest burning wood. Try to get them that they're not full of creosote. Now, the one thing that I do recommend that if you do have a wood stove, is make sure that you've cleaned your chimney, especially your fireplace or your wood furnaces. Make sure you clean all of that before winter hits. Make sure everything is clean, the damper, if it's up or it's down. But always make sure you clean your chimneys very well because, you don't want that to happen in the middle of a winter storm. Something happened. That's not good. So test drive all of those things now. Make sure everything's in proper working order and you can do it as safe as you can. Now, if you look on Pinterest, I've seen this, the terracotta pot heaters. I do have everything to make those. So I do recommend you go into Pinterest and look up terracotta pot heaters. They're super cool. You just need a couple terracotta pots and some tea lights, and they'll tell you what else you need. They're really fantastic and neat. I think for my household that'd be perfect because there's just two of us. We can huddle together and all of us, Something else I do to prepare for winter is at the end of seasons, when places put their comforters on sale, whether they're twins, queen, or extra large. If I can get comforters really super cheap, I go ahead and buy them. Blankets, I go ahead and buy them, and I have like a garbage can, a really big garbage can. It's a roller garbage can, and I have that in my bedroom. And I always put extra comforter sets in there, blankets, and it's about filled up right now because the past couple years I've been buying extra comforters and blankets and things to put in there. I always make sure of that. I buy big wool socks. I make sure that I buy like extra jackets or coats that I see on sale or at the, at tag sales. So always be prepared, and just remember, winter's coming up. So prepare, prepare, prepare. Be those ants, don't be that grasshopper. You all have a great day. Stay warm.